What if I told you that all you need to do is spend 2 hours in the kitchen on a weekend and your family has breakfast, lunch and dinner ready in 20 minutes? Are you spending 2 hours or more every single day trying to figure out what to cook? What if I told you that all you need to do is spend 2 hours in the kitchen on a weekend and your family has breakfast, lunch and dinner ready in 20 minutes?
Are you serious?
I'll show you what I do every single weekend to make sure that I don't have to stress myself during the week and that breakfast, lunch and dinner is ready for my family in time. Okay, real talk, I don't meal prep like you see all over YouTube because quite frankly, I will get bored. I cannot afford to be eating the same meals every single day for 5 days in a row. And I have kids and kids thrive on variety. So what I do instead of doing full meal preps is that I ingredient prep or component prep, and I'll show you how. And by the end of this video, you'll see how I prep my proteins so that dinners and lunches are ready in 10 minutes max. The one rice dish that is always available so that my children would always have something to grab and eat. It saves me time from having to cook from scratch. And finally, the tomato base that goes with every single thing. I can make pasta, soups and stews with all this. So keep watching, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. Let's go. So something I like to make sure we have every single week is some kind of vegetable sauce. And typically I do not like to make this vegetable sauce and then store in the fridge and then bring it out and reheat, because honestly it just gets boring. So what I do is go to the market and get this green leaf called efotete, or it's typically called green leaf as well. And then I wash it thoroughly, get rid of all the dirt and the sand, and I wash until the water comes out clean. And the next step is to blanch these green vegetables, which is basically steaming it in hot water, and do that for about 2 minutes. And after that I get it out of the water and straight into cold water with lots of ice to stop that cooking process. I do this because it keeps the colors, the textures and also the nutrients, and every single time I need to use it, all I need to do is just bring one out. I still have my color, I still have the texture. So once it's cold, I ensure to squeeze out all the water and then roll into like little balls and then store in small Ziploc bags, so that each time I need to use anyone, I don't have to bring out the entire bag. I just bring out a small Ziploc that contains about 2 to 3 balls, and then I make my green vegetable sauce straight from there. Something to take note of is when I want to use it, I will probably bring it out in night before or the morning of, just to give it a little bit of time to defrost, and I put it straight into my sauce. I also like to make nut milk because I'm trying to move away from buying store-bought milk and encourage my children to have a more healthy option. I use whatever nuts I have on hand to make my milk. It could be cashew, almonds. What I typically do is I soak the nuts overnight. I'll typically soak like a cup of the nuts I have on hand overnight, and then the next morning take it out, rinse it off and put in my blender with some salt and honey that act as preservatives. And I could go in with a cup and a half of water or less, depending on how I want the milk to be. If you want it thicker, use less water. If you want it lighter, use more water. And then I go ahead and sieve that in a fine sieve strain or a cheesecloth, and then store in a glass bottle in the back of my fridge, and my milk for the week is basically ready. This typically lasts us 1 week, or sometimes if we stretch it 2, and it remains really fresh and good. Quick tip is to make sure you store at the back of your fridge, not on the door of your fridge. I also like to make sure I have granola in the house every weekend whenever I have time, and then I make it as crunchy as possible, add all my dried fruit, coconut flakes, and then I store in a glass jar, and I make sure that that jar is airtight so that it doesn't get soft. This saves me on days when I don't feel like making any serious meals. I can literally just make like a parfait bowl for my family and everybody is happy and good. Cooking my proteins on the weekend is another lifesaver. So I like to pick 1 to 2 proteins. This week I'm doing some chicken. I season it and then I cook it to about 90% done. And then what we do is, as the week goes by, we either fry or air fry. And our chicken for the children for both lunch and school lunches are pretty much ready. I also like to prep other forms of protein like minced meat or chicken or beef strips. This also helps lunches and even breakfast be ready in no time. So for my chicken minced meat, I just make sure I fry off all the extra liquid both in my chicken mince and my beef mince, and then I go ahead to fry that until it is cooked. And then just at the end, I like to season it properly, and once that's done, I store them in my glass containers, or you can actually store in any sort of containers you have. And once it cools down, go ahead and store in your fridge. These come in really handy for sandwiches, loaded potato bowls, and even like chicken wraps or beef wraps and things like that. So these typically last me a week, but sometimes depending on what we're having, I can stretch it till the following week and it still stays really good, as long as there's electricity to ensure that your food is preserved properly and is kept fresh. I do the same for my chicken as well. Once it's completely cooked, I put it in a container and let it cool down completely before putting it in the fridge. You don't have to stick to chicken. You can also alternate between turkey, lamb, and even goat meat. Whatever it is that your family loves is really what you should aim to prepare. And I promise you that having this prep done ensures that you don't have to slave in the kitchen all day and that your lunches and dinners are ready in no time. Prepping a tomato base is another thing that saves time in my kitchen. I like to prep a tomato base that can be used for multiple purposes like soups, stews, and sauces. So what I typically do is I fry that off properly, and then once it's time in the week to use it, I just bring it out, defrost it, and make whatever sauce I want to make with it. This comes in very handy for pastas, my vegetable sauces, and whatever concoction I want to come up with during the week. This is very handy. Once this is fried and seasoned to my satisfaction, I'll take a little bit out and then store in my fridge. And like I said, once I'm ready, I'll bring it out and make whatever thing I want to make with it. I then use this same base to prepare my jollof rice. Remember I said I always like to have one rice meal in my house so that when the children come back from school, there is no rush to start thinking of what they will eat. There's jollof rice. All we need to do is fry some plantain, make a little bit of salad if my son is in the mood, and fry or air fry their chicken, and their lunch is basically ready. There is no need to slave in the kitchen or anything like that. And once my jollof rice is ready, I'll typically store in a container, leave it to cool down before putting it in my fridge for the week. Even on days when I don't feel like making anything for them to go to school, this is also a very good alternative, especially on mornings when I'm not feeling creative and I honestly don't even have the strength. I just toss this in their lunch boxes and they are pretty much good to go. Something else I love to do is prep my fruits. So things like my pineapples, my watermelon, my pawpaw, I like to pre-cut them so that one, they don't just stay in the pantry and waste, and then two, even when anybody is hungry, they can easily go in the fridge, scoop some out and eat it without having to depend or rely on mommy for, oh, I want to eat something. So it's always available in the fridge. If you're peckish, if you want a snack, it's a great alternative to have. And it also comes in handy for when I want to make things like smoothies or even like fruit bowls. These are very good. And then if I have spinach or mint or lettuce, I also like to pre-wash them and then dry them properly and store in my containers with some paper towel to absorb that moisture. If you want to see a video on that, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to create one for you guys. And this is basically everything I do to save me a ton of hours in the kitchen. Meals are ready in time. And that's it. That's my full meal prep routine. I'm not making 5 full meals on a Saturday. I'm prepping ingredients that can turn into fresh meals all week. It takes me 2 to 3 hours on a Saturday and I save so much more time on the weekend. Plus, my family enjoys what they are eating. They're having to eat so much variety and it's not the same old chicken and rice situation every single day of the week.